Okay, hi, my name is Grace. Thanks so much for watching. These are all the books I read January of 2023, so here we go. These first two books I actually started at the end of December. I was kind of sneaky with them because I wanted to start the year strong, and I had very high hopes for both of these books, and neither of them disappointed. However, one of these books is a Harper Collins book, and I have not been good on BookTube about not reviewing or mentioning Harper Collins books. So the first book is from Harper Collins, and if you don't know, the Harper Collins Union is currently on strike trying to get better wages, more diversity, just a better working environment. And they're currently in talks. They're currently at the bargaining table with Harper Collins. And so I will not be reviewing these books until they get a fair contract. So first book was really good. You'll have to wait. Maybe I'll do a Harper Collins video when the strike is over. Second book I read in January was Disability Visibility. This is a collection of essays edited by Alice Wong. This knocked my socks off. So good. It's all about basically disability rights, gives you a peek into the life of many individuals with a variety of disabilities, covers chronic illness and deafblindness and mental illness and just everything. So many different perspectives and really, really illuminating, very compelling. I tore through it. The essays were so good, and each essay is written by a different writer, and I just thought it was breathtaking. Definitely a strong way to start the month and the year. And it turns out I really like essay collections, as we will come to find out. So there you go. By the way, I am trying to get out of the habit of rating books like on a star basis. I do it on the Storygraph, but in terms of like reviewing books and relaying my experience with books, it's probably more helpful to not rate them, but I did rate that one 5 stars. I can't help it, I'm sorry. Next, I read The Town of Babylon by Alejandra Varela. I love this cover. I really, really enjoyed this one. It follows Andres, whose dad is very sick, and then whose like 20-year high school reunion is taking place in his hometown. So he goes home to help his dad, swings by the reunion while he's there, and runs into an old flame, an old friend. And it's kind of all about reckoning with who you've been before in your youth and who you've become, choices that you made, choices that were made for you. I thought it was really compelling, very enjoyable. I've never seen Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, but it was kind of giving me those vibes mixed with, I don't know, it didn't have quite as much levity. It was a bit heavier, a bit more reflective, but I thought it was great. I thought it was a really interesting character study, and I am keen to read more from that author. The next book I read in January was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Didn't like it. Wasn't for me. I have many classics I plan to read this year, and I hope that this, being my first classic, is not indicative of the rest of them. It basically follows Heathcliff and Kathy, who are in love, but they also kind of hate each other, and they kind of hate everybody around them. I don't know. It fell pretty flat for me. Next, I read I Love You, But I've Chosen Darkness. I did listen to this one on audiobook. It's a really interesting, weird book about motherhood and what motherhood asks of mothers and the choices, again, like choices that you make, choices that are made for you. What happens if you are a mother and then decide, you know what, I'm out. I'm actually not gonna do this. I really like stories and narratives that look at motherhood maybe from a different perspective than what is like lauded in society. And it was autofiction, so a lot of the author's life is inserted into the book. There was a portion about the Manson family, which I thought was really interesting. I actually think I'm inspired to read Helter Skelter now that I've read like that portion of the book was in here, because it really did interest me and intrigue me. But yeah, it was fine. Ultimately, I don't know if I could say I enjoyed it, but it was interesting. Definitely weird, definitely provocative, definitely trying to really play on this like uneasiness we get when mothers hate motherhood, which I thought was really interesting. So if you're wanting something kind of weird, something kind of, provocative, I would recommend it. Next, I read How to Read by Elaine Castillo. This was a library book I checked out, and it is a nonfiction, again, collection of essays, basically discussing how we should read and what does it mean to read critically, and not just like physically reading books, but reading our world and consuming media in our world and in our culture. A lot of discussions about representation, about the labor put upon BIPOC folks when they create and when they write. It was good. It was really good. I do wish I had purchased it, because I think had I been able to annotate and kind of interact with the text more, I probably would have digested it more. And that is my plan, to purchase it and do a reread at some point in the future. I don't read a lot of literary criticism, and so quite a bit of it went over my head, but I thought it was extremely well written. It was very referential, and that might be part of the territory, but there were just like so many references to so many other media that I was kind of like getting lost in the sauce a little bit. But it was really, really good. I will read it again at some point. And if you're looking for just like a very thoughtful, compelling, reflective piece of literary criticism that really pushes against white supremacy, I would recommend it. Next, I read Pure Color by Sheila Heti. This is one of the 23 books I wanted to read in 2023. I want to read it. Again, Sheila Heti does this really interesting thing where it's kind of autofiction. It follows a woman who, her dad dies, and I read a ton of books this month. I read 15 books this month, and that was just the pace I was going. I was just clipping along. A lot of these books were shorter than I'm used to reading, but I mean, I really read quite a bit. And not for any reason other than I wanted to, which I think is a great reason to read, and the only reason you should read if you want to. But I don't remember a lot about this book. And Motherhood by Sheila Heti was my favorite book I read last year, and I had high hopes for this one. It follows a woman dealing with grief, desire, and that's all I'll say. It's not in true Heti style. It's not plot heavy, but it just, I don't know, it didn't do for me the same things that Motherhood did. And it's its own book, it's its own work, so I shouldn't put those expectations on it, but it did leave me wanting in the end. However, a lot of people really love this. I know Allie loved this one from last year, and it does do some interesting things, and maybe on a reread, I would get more from it. And maybe my expectations were too high, which I think plays a big part in my overall enjoyment of it. But yeah, it was all right. Another book that I had high expectations and ended up just being all right for me was Blouettes by Maggie Nelson. It is an essay, a nonfiction reflection on this woman writing about this breakup, this disillusion of a relationship through the color blue. So it's about the color blue, but it's really about the loss that you experience when a relationship ends and how it kind of affects your whole world. And I don't know, this is another one that maybe if I reread it in a different time, in a different place, it would mean more to me, or I would experience more through it, but it just, I don't know. And maybe it's like a poetic essay, and maybe when, I think I have a lot attached to the word poetic in terms of expectations, because when I hear that, I'm like, it's going to be beautiful, and not all poetry is beautiful. And I think I expect it to be beautiful, and I expect beauty, but I don't know if Blouettes gave me that. And that was kind of what I was wanting. So ultimately, I think my expectations did not sit well with the work and what it actually was, but I'm absolutely willing to give it another chance farther down the road. Maybe when I have engaged more critically with work and am able to appreciate different forms and different formats, and also when I've consumed more poetry and have a more robust understanding of what it can be. So it feels like it was more me than the book, because people love Blouettes. It's very well loved. Next, I read Spare by Prince Harry. I really couldn't resist with this one. I love royal family drama. I love Princess Diana. And this one was all right for me. The first portion, it's kind of broken up into 3 portions. So the first portion is his childhood, which I ate up. There's a lot of discussion of King Charles and his mother and just the whole royal family that I thought was like very enthralling. The middle portion covers his military service, which frankly I just found very boring and I'm not interested in. But then the latter portion of the book is him meeting Meghan and all of the tribulations that they go through, and ultimately their choice to like leave the service of the royal family and make their own life in LA. And I really enjoyed that because I'm a big fan of Meghan. So yeah, it just was kind of middle of the road for me. But I did listen to the audiobook. I thought his voice was nice and he narrated it well. It was pretty long. I think they could have cut it down quite a bit, but it's his story, so he gets to tell it however he wants. And yeah. Next, I read 2 really, really sweet graphic novels, The Tea Dragon Society and The Tea Dragon Festival. I'll kind of treat them both as one piece here. And it basically follows this like really sweet, found family, diverse cast of characters and their little dragon companions that like grow tea leaves out of them, and then you can like make tea, and it's just really sweet. It's about belonging. It's about finding something to be passionate about, but it was really cute. It didn't like blow me away, but I thought it was really wholesome and endearing, and I do plan to read the 3rd one at some point before I have to return it to the library. So if you're wanting just like a really innocent, like I said, wholesome, precious reading experience, maybe like a palate cleanse or a reset, I would recommend them. Next, I read The Collected Schizophrenias by Esme Wei-Jun Wong. And this one was so good. I really can't stop singing its praises. Definitely has some heavy themes and difficult content, as it does look pretty ruthlessly and unflinchingly at life with schizophrenia and with severe and persistent mental illness. And that's kind of all I have to say. Like, I think it is an incredible work. I think it really is a huge step in the direction of destigmatizing mental illness and just like being able to talk about it openly and honestly and in a humanizing way. I think so many people are afraid of mental illness because they don't understand it, and they have been told to ignore the humanity of folks that live with it. I thought this work was just incredible and important, and I just really think everybody should read it. I think it's pretty important. Another book that I think everybody should read is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, which was the next book I read in January. And this, for such a short book, packs such a punch. It follows 2 familial lines, 2 sequences of descendants across time, across generations. And I just was like, I don't know how she packed so much into such a small book. I think it is educational. I said this in my reading blog, but I think it has huge educational merits and should be taught in schools. I just thought it was, on top of being harrowing and sobering and illuminating, it was also hopeful in a heartbreaking way. And yeah, This one, it's really good. You should read it. I think you should read it. Next, I read Outline by Rachel Cusk. This was very much the influence of Ben from Benjamin Journal. It's another piece of autofiction, which is like a big theme in all this lit fic that I'm reading this year. It follows our narrator who is on a trip to Athens in Greece and is teaching a writing workshop. And it's described as a novel in 10 interviews, I think. But basically, the narrator herself is kind of removed and is just absorbing the stories of people around her and is getting told about somebody's divorce, about somebody's dog, about she's just being told all of these stories and life experiences of those around her. I thought it was written beautifully. It has absolutely implanted in my brain that I need to go to Greece, which is my new obsession, hyperfixation. So that's me right now. But I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was written beautifully, very digestible. And yeah, just like the way you move through the novel with the narrator is so reflective and quiet and thoughtful, and you just really are consuming these stories. And I just really, really enjoyed it. I just thought it was very good. And I think if you're looking for something more quiet, more literary, more on the side of sitting at a cafe, like a beachside cafe, just watching others and like people watching and eavesdropping on their stories and their conversations, I think that's kind of the experience that you get with this. And then lastly, I read You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. And I loved this one. After watching some well-respected and beloved booktubers like Kayla and Chandler not vibe with this book, I kind of went in with low expectations, but something about it really called to me. I knew it was messy. I knew it was controversial maybe. And so I went in with those expectations and was blown away by the writing, loved the characters. I thought they were so real. Like the dialogue and the characters just felt so real to me. I just really loved it. And even though my leg is asleep, I just ate it up. The mess, the family drama, the forbidden love, I just devoured it. And it is definitely a romance, but it does not fall under the category of like traditional romance. It definitely breaks the mold. It is more literary, but it is funny. Like the characters are funny. Joy, the main character's best friend, is like so delightful. And I just thought the whole thing was, I really loved it. And you know what? I did like the main relationship, the main romance. I was like, I don't know what that says about me, but I was into it. I bought into it. So if you're wanting something that's kind of like, if you just want to like popcorn consuming someone else's drama, like drama, it was a fun time and I devoured it. I think I read it in less than 24 hours. I just ate it up. I really ate it up. And so that was my month. Such a strong reading month. I have never read so many books in one month. And I had a lot of 4 and 5 stars. And so I hope that this is an indication for how the rest of the month is going to go. And by month, I mean year. Yeah, it's just very exciting for me. I feel very energized about my reading. I feel really encouraged about where it's going. And honestly, utilizing the library has really changed the game for me because I am such a mood reader. And I've put a ton of books on hold. And so I just pick them up whenever they're ready for me. And so on top of my physical TBR, which I haven't been touching as much, I have just like all these books that I'm in the mood to read. And so once I'm done with one, I can just pick up the next one. And yeah, I just can't recommend using your local library enough if you have that resource. And let's see what we do in February. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please let me know what your favorite read from January was in the comments down below. And I would love to know if you are interested in reading any of the books that I read in January. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great February, and I'll see you next time. Bye.